Thank you, Ibukon. I need to accept that. Thank you, Ibukon, and good morning to everybody. My name is Bankole Dada. I'm a senior business analyst with one of the I'm actually Virgin Active at the moment as a senior business and working on a global mobile app for the business. Just some transformation stuff going on. On the flip side, I also own a management consulting business that has different arms: web design, app development, and mentoring. Just we try to explore and have fun. Just getting better and getting information, getting understanding, and forming a community of learning where everybody can grow and learn. Because I believe, apart from being a mentor, a mentee also grows because a mentor can put him under pressure to grow. I'm product management certified with Product School. I don't have a BA certification. I just, for some odd reason, I don't. Yeah, and I have a Scrum Master certification, even though I don't see myself as a Scrum Master. So yeah, so it's just a fun way of learning, of understanding what others do. And I personally, that's just me. If I know something, I want to share with you. If you know something, I want to just understand what you know and how it can benefit me. So that's it about me. I'm married. I've got 2 kids. I live in London at the moment, and as you can see, I love cycling. Once in a while, when I can get on the bike, I do it. Even though I use the cold as an excuse, but all that about me. Yeah. So today we're talking about user stories, techniques for crafting actionable user stories. And once again, I want to thank Ibukun for this platform. It's a blessing to everybody, and I'm actually excited to be here. I'm excited to offer my service. Excited to even anytime I'm called up, I'm happy to to do what I can to help anybody that's in need. And so today we're going to be talking about techniques for crafting actionable user stories. Now, I'm going to assume that everybody here understands Scrum or Agile. If you don't, I'm just going to run through it. It's a way of delivering value incrementally. For example, we want to build, let's see, something simple. Yeah, we want to build something simple, and we're looking at what we can build as quickly as possible. For example, we want to build a website. But we want to actually capture our user base. So let's start quickly. Let's build a landing page and put a newsletter feature there, so we can gather people's details. That's still an MVP. That's still a website, and then we can build engagement, start asking questions, and all that. And then we can add another page. Maybe we can add another feature. So pretty much it's an incremental way of delivering value, which is different from the waterfall. Waterfall is you have your requirements up front, you give it to the developer, everybody goes away, you throw things across the wall, and then at the end of the day, you probably deliver something users don't want because user needs are constantly changing. But unlike Agile or Scrum, it's around the customer is involved in every aspect of that journey of delivering value incrementally. So it's an incremental thing where we look at it. What have we done? Is it good enough? What mistakes did we do? What can we improve upon? Is there anything the team needs to do? So all these things come together. It's a team effort. It's a collaborative thing. Collaboration. There are tenets of Agile, which I'm not going to I can't even, I'm not even sure I remember one of them, but yeah, I'm not very good at remembering acronyms. So all those things you can look up on Scrum Guide. It's there to help you. So with that in the background, today's workshop is the background of user stories, where they come from, what user stories are, how to write user stories, a format, taking it further, and then we can practice. So I've actually added a link to some documents. I'm going to add more. Anybody that's interested, there are a lot of documents out there that will guide you to write user story. And the thing about user stories is there's no one format. It's a tool for collaboration. Now let me jump the gun. Let's go to the next page. So sorry, I should have gone to the next page. So yeah. So what is a user story? So given the context, the background I gave, I said a user story is something that helps us to deliver value. That's the key. If it doesn't deliver value, it's just a wish list. So if it does not deliver any business value, it is a wish list. If my goal as a business is to build a website where people will come, get some value, and people come there, they don't get some value, that means that user story has messed up, or have not written it completely, or have not delivered that user story completely correctly, or my acceptance criteria was not right, because that delivers the scope of the work. The acceptance criteria that we bring in delivers the scope of the work, tells me this is how far we're going to go with the story. This is how far the user can go with this feature. So it says traditional requirements like use cases try to be as detailed as possible. User story is defined incrementally in 3 stages. The brief description of the need. So user story is usually a short thing. As a person, I want to do this so that I can do that. Then there are conversations that happened after that story. For example, if I say that as a man, I want to do this so that I can do this, you need to figure out what kind of a man. In fact, these days, the definition of man is changing. So you need to be definite on what that man is. Is he over 40? Is he over 50? Is he 60? Is he 70? So all those things will create other questions and will guide everybody, will align everybody that's interested, that's involved in creating that feature, to be able to understand that this is the context in which we're saying a man does this. So that conversation it helps us to do what we call a backlog grooming. When we finish an iteration and we're looking at the next sprint, we want to, get our backlogs, get our stories ready. Is it ready for us to actually work on? Our definition of done, our definition of ready, and all those things. Now, like I said, I'm not going to talk about things like acceptance criteria, because if I do, we're not going to leave here until 4 o'clock today. So I'm just going to focus on user stories. And another reason why I'm not focusing on acceptance criteria, because different organizations use different formats of acceptance criteria. They can say it can just be a one-liner, and it's not really the scope of the BA. It's usually owned by the QA, even though everybody's involved. But the QA is the one who tests and who designs and cleans up the acceptance criteria to meet the scope and the requirements that's been developed from the business. Also, then after that, I've jumped the gun again. The test that confirm the story's satisfactory completion. So that test comes from the acceptance criteria. Things like test cases, unit tests, all sort of tests come from the acceptance criteria, and it helps us, validate the value, validate the usefulness of that story. So, like I said, a user story is something that drives conversations. It aligns teams. It helps teams align. If I say, as a man, I want to do this, everybody is seeing the same man. They are seeing what the man is wearing. They are seeing what the man is doing. If I say as a man, and maybe Ben is seeing a disabled man, or a 7-foot man, or an 8-feet man, or whatever, we're not aligned. We're still seeing man, but the context is so wrong. So a user story is a collaborative tool for teams. It helps us to collaborate. It helps us. And another thing I always say is that users don't usually have a grasp of requirements. They don't really understand what their requirements are. Henry Ford, when he wanted to build the first car, he asked his users what they wanted. They said they wanted faster horses. We wanted a horse that goes faster. If Henry Ford had gone with developing faster horses, we won't have the Tesla and the rest of them today. So the context is always right. You need to ask the right questions. You need to speak with people. You need to understand. You need to keep evolving in your stories. Keep evolving your stories. Keep asking questions. Keep exploring. Keep discovering. Look at what your competitors are doing, and use that to improve your stories. So users will always need our help in fine-tuning stories so that requirements can actually meet their needs. Next slide. So this is one of the acronyms that we use to measure a good story. There's something called the INVEST acronym. Invest. It was developed by Bill Wake in the way back. So a story must be independent. You want to be able to build in any sequence. You don't want a story to be stuck on another. For example, it must be as independent as possible, so that we can actually work on that story within an iteration, and it's ready, and it can actually now connect with others. It must be negotiable. You must not. Let's not put too much details, because if there's too much details, that means the story is going up it's becoming something like an epic. An epic is a large user story. It's not. We don't want that in an iteration. Then it must be valuable. I think this is actually the most valuable part of that valuability of the story. Your story must deliver some value. If I'm logging into the website and I have access, getting access to that website is a value to me. If I log in and it says I see a 404 error, I've not gotten any value from that action. Then I must be able to estimate my story. I must be able to say, oh, I can finish a story in maybe 3 days or 3 hours. It doesn't matter how some people use days, some people use man hours, they use whatever, but you must be able to estimate it and get it done within that time. It must be small enough for you to build in a sprint, and then it must be testable. Yeah, I mean, if I cannot test what you delivered, then there's no way I can validate that that's going to deliver some value to a user. I'm going to try and not go too fast, but I've got about 14 slides, so I'm not. I'll try and entertain questions midway. If anybody has any questions, let me know, and then we can. If it's enough for me to pause and answer, it's fine. Going back to when I said context is key. If I say that a man and a dog are walking down the road, now these six pictures are six pictures of men and dogs. If we just write that a man and a dog is able to log into a website, we don't. If you ask 100 people what a man and a dog looks like, you see all sorts of questions. You see all sorts of answers. So context is key. What kind of a man? What kind of a dog? How tall is the man? What's the man's skin color? What does the man do? So that's where personas come in. If we are as BAs, personal development is one of our work. We for example, we want to build a website. Maybe Bokun is one of our users, or EV or something like those. Those are the names I can remember. We need to understand the needs of that person, because that's where the story is going to come from. If, for example, if you're building a calculator for somebody who is about 60 years old and you're building a calculator for somebody who's 20, you do understand that for the 60-year-old, you probably need something with big buttons, really, really big buttons, and they don't want too much fluff. They just want to be able to press 1 + 2 and get 3. But the 20-year-old doesn't mind a scientific calculator. So there are personal differences. There are all sorts of user experiences that differ between the people. So understanding who the user is very important in writing user stories, because that story comes from interacting with them. It comes from interacting with these users. Even though there's a theme that we can get from these 6 pictures. There's a man and a dog, but that's not enough. What kind of a man? What kind of dog? What kind of breed of dog? What does the dog eat? What's the dog's nature? So all those things are things that we discuss in the team. Developer will ask a question, tester will ask a question, BA will ask a question, and the product owner, who is the voice of the customer, to answer these questions. And where there are no answers, we do further research. We go back to the drawing board and ask those questions, maybe interviews, all sorts of things. There are a lot of tools out there that we can use to drive those questions. So going back to where stories come from, I have another picture here. So if you're running a project, these are probably where your stories will come from. I'm using a product. It doesn't matter whether it's a product or a service. So who influences what? What it does. Who finances it? Who creates its content from a function? So this thing that I've written here is actually has to do with a website or an app. Who manages, monitors the products used? Who uses it? Who acts on data stored, collected, and reported on? Who supports customers using the product? Who sells or promotes the finished product? Who delivers the finished product to customers? And who reflects it? So there are all sorts of customers, all sorts of users. You need to understand the impact of their influence on what you're trying to deliver. And those are your users. Those are your users. They might look like, one user might not be as powerful as another, but you need to understand where the most value will come from in understanding who this user is, and interact with that user, get your stories out, get your requirements out from interacting with them. Sometimes it might just be sitting down. I remember one of the projects I did with one of my first project with Capgemini. We're trying to drive an RPA project, and one of the things we did was just sit down and listen to what the users do. Just listening. It's a contact center, so wanted to understand how robotic process automation can actually help them, deliver value quicker. The quicker as in, okay, if they're spending 10 minutes on the process today, can we reduce it to 1 minute? You know, it's something definite. So can we reduce the time spent in doing this by layering RPA onto the present systems that they have? So we sat down, look at the journey, timed it. It was clumsy, but it was really useful when it all came together. We started looking at those different use cases, even though we didn't write user stories, but we started looking at use cases to understand how people work, what systems they go through, you know, how they log in into 5 different systems to be able to speak to Bankole who has a loan and is worried that they've taken out too much money. So it's impacting both the contact center person and the person who has a loan, who's trying to, you know, speak with the loan business to say, oh, why are you taking money out and all that. So we understood the context from all users and understood which users are high priority and which users are, you know, not very important down the lane. So there's a lot of things that come together. There's a lot of things you're going to do to understand how you formulate your user story. It's actually by interacting with the users, understanding those users, defining them, and then, you know, and then coming down to user stories and, you know, going further from there. So the next one is why user stories? Why can we write user stories? Now, user stories is one of the many tools we can use in Scrum or in Agile, because it helps us, you know, express business value. Now, a business gets value when a user does the thing that we predict that they will be able to do. If the user is not using our website and they are going to XY and they're going to XYZ website. Sorry, there's somebody's yeah. So if a user is not using what we predicted that they'll be able to use, and they are using, you know, our competitor website, that means there's something wrong with our delivery. So a user story helps us to express, keeps us within the scope of expressing business value. And then in writing user stories, we must avoid too much details. We must have something we can deliver within a time frame. For example, if we keep changing stories, it's not going to work for the team on the long run. So we must avoid too much detail, avoid too much details. And then there's in terms of that details, like I said, context too matters. For example, like I said about the man and the dog, we decide what kind of man, what kind of a dog, and then work from there. If we find out that that's not working for us, Scrum or Agile allows us to actually evolve, change our stories, do everything necessary to make sure that we deliver the right thing. That's why we can deliver something in this sprint, and next sprint, we're working on something else. So user stories must be in small chunks that can invite negotiation and movement in the backlog. So they must be small enough for the team to deliver. User stories must be small enough for the team to deliver. And then it's something that the development team can actually use. They can use it to deliver the requirements. Like I always tell people that user stories are not requirements. They are not requirements. They are things that help us to deliver requirements. So it's always things that people have argued about. But user stories are not requirement, because sometimes when you write user stories, there are things like business rules, a lot of other things that come together to form, you know, there are processes, business rules, and a lot of things that come together to make sure that that user story is actually delivering the requirements that we need. And then it is tested. We do our requirements traceability, and if it's okay, it sign it off and it goes on. We go on to the next one. So that's the why of user stories. User stories helps us to deliver requirements, even though there are other tools like use cases, process maps, business cases, and a lot of other things that we can use to deliver requirements depending on what methodology we're using. For example, if we are outsourcing our development work, we don't need to write stories. We just give the development team whoever our requirements, and they come up with all those things, and we don't need to. So it all depends on how your organization works. But if you work in a development team, you must be able to write a user story and, you know, get things going. So I'll move on to the next one. It's 10:23 now. So this is the format of user story. Now, this is not written in gold, but this has worked for me. and I believe it can work for you. So it says when getting started with stories, a template can help you ensure that you don't inadvertently start writing technical tasks, because there are sometimes as a BA we get too technical and forget that we are working with the users, where you should not say, oh, for example, how can I put it now? For example, we don't start talking about how databases integrate with one another. An API should be able to extract something from the ladder back down website and show it to me when I log in. We don't need all that. We are interested in user outcomes. And it's a simple thing. As a user type, like I said, context, different kinds of men, a man and a dog. You have to know the user type. As a user type, I want to perform an action so I can get a benefit or a value. For example, as a website visitor, I want to log in with my username and password so that I can have access to my maybe my page or my account on the website. So that's it. It's a user story. Hello? Okay. So I've given some example back there. As a newbie, I want to join the Ladderback community so that I can acquire business analysis skills. That's a classic epic. That's a story. I want to join the Ladderback community so that I can acquire business analysis skills or experience. As a mentor, I want to help my mentees learn so that they become confident to get better paying jobs. Now I can test that. But that, for example, that second one, if I tested that, oh, I did mentoring and I didn't get a job. Now, I didn't promise you that I'll get you a job. I said I'll help you be confident to get a job. Now, if you're not getting a job, we're not going to check the job. We're going to check the confidence. Did you get the confidence from interacting with me? So it's debatable, but user stories help us align our thinking as a team, because if we're delivering something in a team and we are not aligned as to what we're delivering, we're gonna fight. We're not gonna deliver what everybody expects. So user stories bring alignment. It enables collaboration. It helps us define the scope of our work. This is what we're planning to do, and this is the user type, and these are the outcomes, and these are the actions. So I'm going to talk about what user stories are not. Like I said, user stories are not requirements. They are never requirements. Requirements are a mixture of so many things: user stories, business rules, acceptance criteria, systems rules, all sorts of things. They come together to feed into the requirements. So if anybody tells you user stories are requirements, given the context, it is not correct. So like I said, if it doesn't provide some value to the user, it's probably not a story, or it's a badly written story, or it's just a wish list. So it must provide a value to an identified user. That allows you to set priorities, whether this user need is important to us, it's important to us as a business, should we pursue it or not, you know? So that's go on. So there's another thing I've just put here as a context. Traditionally, when user stories are written on 3x5 cards, you know, they're written on note cards like a sticky notes. That's for people that use walls. Even though we don't use walls anyway, I still use walls in my house when I'm trying to start something new. I want something I can see visually. So it's a visual tool. It's something that we put on the wall. It could be a Kanban board, a simple to do, in progress, done, you know, completed, and all that. So then there'll be conversation. People can write little notes behind it, details, questions, you know, assumptions, all those things, business rules, all those things can go in the conversation. And then the confirmation bit is the acceptance criteria, the tests, user acceptance test. Did the user, when I logged into your website, did I have access to my account? Yes. If it's a no, then what happened? Maybe there was a bug. Let's correct it and test it. And and it goes on like that. Then there's an example of user stories here. As a user, I can cancel the reservation. You see that the format they wrote here is, as a user, I can do this. They didn't say I can do this so that I can do this. So it's all depends on how your organization uses it. I would prefer, as a user, I can do this so that I can get this value, because it gives you a context of what is happening. It gives you a complete story of what is happening. So different people write differently, and that's fine. For example, I say if you outsource your development work, it's fine. You can write it in any format. Then the details. This gives you an idea of the details based on this sample travel reservation system. You know, as a user, I can cancel the reservation. Does the user get a full refund or partial refund? No, now these are questions that come from that conversation. What happens when they cancel? Do they get a full or partial? So we want to know what is the business rules, what are the privacy, what are the terms and conditions of you know, doing whatever you've done. is the refund to our credit card or is it side credit? So are we going to give you back the money, or we're going to, like some websites do, they will not give you back. They say, oh, we're giving you credit so you can come back and spend that money. So all those things are conversations. Then how far ahead must be reservation be canceled? So can I cancel 2 weeks above, or 3 weeks, or one day? Is that the same for all hotels, for all site visitors? Can frequent travelers cancel? So when you identify the users, you can ask questions around the users. Is a confirmation to be provided to the user? How do we do that? So there are questions that will come when a story comes in, and you share with the team. You share it with the team, and then go on from there, and then we can decide, yeah, this is the scope of our work, so these are the details, these are the answers. And sometimes most of these answers will be provided by the product owner, because he's the voice of the customer. He represents the business, is the voice of the customer, so he must be able to provide that answer. And where he cannot, he can actually tell somebody, maybe a user researcher, go research that, come with an answer, and then explain to the team what, and the team can decide what we do. So the team is empowered to make decisions, and user stories help us make decisions around business value. So there are other details which I'm not going to go through. There are things that are provided, you can look at them and all that. So when do I add details? So you add details when the acceptance criteria is, and to provide definition of done for the story is being done, is being made. So we need stories to tell us, we need details to let us know the scope of that story. Because for example, if I say I want to log into a website, with technology these days, I can log in with my password, I can log in with my bio, my eyes, I can log in with my fingerprint, I can log in with a lot of other things. I can log in with my phone, I can log in with a code that's sent to my email. So we need to define the scope. What are we logging in? Is it just the basic log in with their name and password and then you're in? Or we want to make it more secure? Okay, let's use 2FA. Or we want to do that, let's do more. So it's important that we decide what the scope of that story, what the acceptance criteria looks like. And like I said, that's usually pioneered by the tester. And sometimes the BA ends up being the tester, where in an organization they don't have the tester, the BA still does that. So it's good to know how acceptance criteria are written, but that's for another journey, another day. So like I said, the product owner should list as many acceptance criteria as possible, because at the end of the day, he or she signs off that acceptance criteria, and then it's discussed with the business, and testers can do their bit, and test to make sure that it's delivering that value. Always strive to place the acceptance criteria directly beneath the value statement description field. So there's a value, like as it is, when I do this, I should be able to do this. So acceptance criteria is around what I can do, what that value I get is measured in the acceptance criteria. All right. So who writes stories? Who can write stories? Anybody in a development team should be able to write stories. If you're a product owner, product manager, project manager, you should have an idea of what the story is. It's simple. As a person, I want to do this so I can get this, and it helps everybody. It just aligns. Let me give you a story. There was a time we're trying to do some migration work, which was very complicated. In fact, my head of projects head was literally, it was getting more confused as we're saying it. So he said, let's write simple user story, or draw a simple process map, and then we're able to align everybody, because there are a lot of developers talking technical jargons. I'm not a developer. Technical jargons, how this is aligned, how in Azure you can do this, you can whitelist IP and all that. We're not interested in that. We're interested in an outcome. So they wanted to be able to integrate something into another system, so that all the manual interventions can be removed. That's just what the ask was. So we're not interested in developer task, in developer, what they need to fire, whether they need to activate some remote engine somewhere. We're just interested in the outcome. I want to be able to do this. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I want to be able to do. And that just helped everybody to understand what the ask was. So the customer proxy or product owner, and anybody else who identifies a need for the product can contribute user stories. Anybody can be head of finance, it can be Ibukun, it can be anybody. They can bring a story idea in. So ownership and maintenance is under the product owner. The product owner owns the user stories and is responsible for writing, gathering, maintaining, and prioritizing. That's why I say sometimes BAs end up being product owners, they end up being testers, because BAs, we're like spiders. We have so many arms, we can do so many things, and it's fun. It's fun when you do that. It actually increases your value, because if you're able to write stories, write acceptance criteria, write all that, like I said, there are always misnomers in some business where they don't have a testing function, and you are going to have to take it up as a BA. So you have to write that and work with the development team to decide the scope of that acceptance area. And then who uses it? Developers, testers, technical teams. They use user stories to be able to know what to implement, and when they are done, you can test it. So the product owner tracks overall progress based on the status of the user stories. Management tend to try user stories too, rolled up into a fix or feature. So they go to that board and they know what you're doing. So those are the people that use stories. So some user story creation mistakes. So sometimes a lot of us are too technical in writing stories. User stories should be simple enough to deliver in one iteration. If a story is looking like, some definition from IEEE requirements document that, you're looking at, you don't understand, it's going to be a waste of time. You're going to spend a lot of time spending time backlog grooming to actually doing real work. So it must be simple enough. It must not be too formal or too much detail, just simple. I want to be able to do this. This is the simple value I want for now. Also, there are times that developers write technical tasks as user stories. You don't need to do that. For example, if I'm working in Azure and I need to fire up a virtual machine, that's not a story. It impacts nobody. That's not a story. So you can't write that. That's a task. That's a task you need to do. You can fire up a machine, or I'm installing WordPress. That's not a story. I'm installing WordPress so I can build the website. That's not a story. That's a task, And then also, let us not skip the conversation, because that's where everybody gets validation as to what we want to do. There must be conversation. There must be story, conversation, and confirmation. That's a valuable user story. There must be a story written, there must be a conversation after that story, and there must be a test. We must be able to test it to confirm that we've actually delivered what we promised. So improving user stories. So this is just an extra. You don't have to accept this. Now, I went to a UI UX course where the background was we understand that users don't usually understand what they want. They don't understand what they want. And they came up with this fantastic user story type. A typical user story says, as a user, I want to do this so I can, get this value. They now improved it to say that if I don't do that action, this is the impact on the business. And when I do the action, this is the value that the business will do. Now, what this is trying to do is trying to formulate a requirement from user stories, which I think is pretty cool, because sometimes if you're starting from nothing, and you can actually use this to build your stories, to build your requirement document. And I think it's cool, but it's just an extra that still blows me away till today. And yeah, so that's me done. We spent 40 minutes, and once again, thank you everybody for listening. Now, if you have questions, this is where you take over. Thank you.
Thank you. There are quite a few questions in the chat window.
Okay.
That people have typed in as they've, as they've listened to you. Thank you so much for that presentation. We've also got some hands up, so I'll take Esther's question first before we tackle the questions in the chat window. So okay. Esther, would you like to unmute yourself, please? Thank you. Let's just go to Esther, try and find Esther. Oh, Esther Wilcox, you've put your hands down. Let's just ask you to unmute to see if you've still got your question.
Yeah, I typed it in the chat. What I wanted to ask is that, is it best practice to link the user's need to the user stories or requirements?
There's no yes or no to that question. It depends on what you decide. Like I always say, the answer to it is how empowered is your team to decide on a course of action. There's no right or wrong way to use it. If you think in your head, will doing that get some value to the user or to the business? Who is benefiting from that action that you are taking? Then go for it. But you might get some pushback from the business because, oh, we don't do it that way. Why are you bringing a new way? And that's the thing that Agile exposes or Scrum exposes. It's like a mirror. It's a template. It's a shirt that you wear. How you wear it is going to be different from how Team B wears it, and what you deliver is going to be different from what Team B delivers. So I won't say yes or no. I would say, how empowered is your team to make decisions? Because you can see a gap and say, oh, yeah, doing this will fill that gap, and just go for it. So you can also carry out experiments. Scrum allows you to carry out experiments. You can say, oh, we did this way and we got this result. Let's do it this way and get this result. Now, I might not have answered your question, but I know that I have answered your question, because that's the best answer I can give you. It depends on how empowered your team is to make a decision. So there's no right or wrong way. Like I said, there's no right way to write user story. Some people say, as a user, I want to do this. That's it. They're not interested in value. They're just interested in what action you are taking. But because they are giving it out to somebody to deliver. So they don't need to write the business value. They're just interested in what. So there's no right or wrong way. It's still agility. That's the way they want to do their thing. So that's the way I will answer that. That's the way how empowered your team is will determine how what creativity you can bring into your delivery. All right.
Thank you very much. I have a
You're
follow-up
welcome.
question, please.
Mhm.
On the project I'm working currently, there are no process map. What they have is users need. So document is it the requirement?
Leave me alone.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, go on.
Yeah, the requirements, the high-level requirement, do I need to pull it out from those users need?
Correct.
Okay.
Try and see if you can do a user journey.
Okay.
When a user comes to my product or whatever, what do I expect them to, or what are they doing right now? And then what do I expect them to do? So what I expect them to do will be your requirements. And then you can test it, because they are doing this right now and we're not getting good results. If they do this, we'll get better results. That's where your features, your rules, your conditions, and depending on the technology you are bringing to, that will determine the scope of the work. Because if you are bringing something that's high tech that you don't have, you don't have the. So I don't know, but it's combination of people, processes, and technology. Now you understand who your users are. You understand what they are. You have a list of what you think they should be doing. Now try and interview the users, go through their journey, do something like an empathy map, ask questions. What are the pain points when they use our product, and how can we alleviate that? And that can become your requirements. And that can evolve as the user changes or as your business is growing and you want to make improvements. So it's something that will constantly evolve. So that's the way I'll put it. Understand the user, try to get different aspects of what you think the user will benefit from being in contract with your product or your service, and document that as a requirement, and come up with a process map, and then turn that process map can be part of your requirements too.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, please could Tayo Adenekon please unmute yourself, and please could Mr. Nami Nod just close your video. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very
You're
much
welcome.
for this session. My question is with regards to epics.
Yeah.
So I have had situations where I have been on a project and they've constantly berated me for not being able to write good epics. And from my own understanding of epics are basically like the big chunk of work. So say, for instance, you're going to build a website and you want to build a homepage first. I would write an epic like build a homepage and then build stories underneath. But then I've constantly been berated for that. So I don't understand, maybe if you can shed a bit more light on how epics should be written, I'd greatly appreciate.
Sorry, I think because this workshop is about user stories and we've got quite a few people asking questions about user
Yeah, but
stories.
we draw out user stories from the epics, and
I,
that's why.
I totally understand that, but what I'm saying is that there are quite a few people that have questions about user stories. If you're in the Ladder Back Down WhatsApp group, could you kindly ask that question in the group that you're in? And I'm sure that many people will provide you with responses, but we do want to get round to everyone who's got a question about user stories specifically, if you don't mind. Is that a deal?
Sorry, Boko. Actually, epics are user stories. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, but because
it's
the
gonna be a
lady
short
has
answer.
said
It's
that
gonna,
she's been
yeah,
okay. Please make
yeah,
it very short
yeah,
because we've
yeah.
got
It's
quite
gonna
a
be a
few
short answer.
people. Okay, thank you.
Yes. You're right. The thing is, I think the solution to that is ask them how they want you to write the stories. That's just it. How do you want it written? Because if they want it to written like in the format of a user story, I want to log into the homepage so I can do this, then do that. It's fine. You just need to
Thank
be
you.
aligned to people because they're not aligned to the way you're working right now. So building alignment will help them and to help you too. So that you're right in saying, in fact, there are times I write an epic as login. That's fine. And then we write all the sub stories under it. So you're right, but you need to work with the team and just write it the way they want. Yeah. Thank you. Next question, please.
Thanks so much. We had Olayin Kafalodun. Please, can you ask your question? Thank you. I've asked you to unmute. Can you do that? Have you been able to unmute yourself? Let me just try and make sure you're able to unmute.
I'm sorry, I didn't need to raise my hand. No question. Thank you.
Oh, you haven't got a question. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see. Perpetua, have you got a question? Let me just try and make sure you're able to unmute about user stories. Thank you.
Oh, yes, I have questions to ask. Good day, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Banks, for this opportunity. So what I want to ask is, for a starter like me, are there books, are there things I can lay my hands on to get conversant with this user story, to know how to go about it?
There are books. I've also added a link to just get you started because this is like a startup. User stories they could be complicated, but everybody needs to understand the fundamentals. So I put a book by I won't call it a book, like a presentation I attended by somebody. I can't mention it here because I don't know who's watching. It's in the Google Drive. If you don't have it, just reach out to me on the ladder, but I'll share with you. I've also have another tip, but you can use that and then you can buy. I will always advise BAs to buy a handbook. There's so many books out there that talks about stories. I will share that too with you so that you can go through that. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And please, could Judith unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Banks, for your time. Please, I would like to know, as a starter, when will I be using user stories or writing maybe like functional requirements? Like, how would I know when to use a user story? Thank you.
In the order of things, user stories comes after you understand what your requirements are. But in Agile, sometimes you might not even start. You might even start without understanding requirements. But once you understand what the users are, you can interview them, ask them questions, ask them what their problems are with using your product, and requirements can come from there. Like I said, user stories are not requirements. They explain requirements. They deliver requirements. So you need to understand what those requirements are. And that can come through interviewing users. Users could be the business. If, for example, we're building a website, we're designing a website in Dada Back Down. Ibukun is a user. She's a business user. She's identified. There are other people. You can identify random people. Maybe a BA wants to come in there, or a cybersecurity person who's just off the university wants to come in there and learn. So what should that journey look like? And you can design that. You can go the way of use cases, business case, write all that, value metrics, a lot of plethora of things that you can use. But I always like to keep it simple. Look for a user empathy map. Just look at the person's journey from hitting the homepage to signing up for a webinar. What does that look like? How long does it take them? What problems do they meet along the way? And how can you help them alleviate those problems? What features can you build? So those can feed into your user stories. User stories can come from there. He was trying to do this and he couldn't do this. So as a cybersecurity newbie, when I do this, I should be able to do this. That's a story, and that can feed into some requirements somewhere. So that's one way to go about it. Like I said, there are so many ways depending on what methodology you're using. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So Ayo, Kemi, and then Helen. But before we ask our questions, please could we try and make it brief, because I'm aware that we've got quite a few questions in the chat window. And although I've got every moment of the day to answer any questions, I'm not in a position to do so because I know nothing about being a BA. And Mr. Banks has to leave at 11 o'clock. That's why I just want us to keep things brief. So
we can keep it till 11:30. I don't mind.
Oh,
it's fine.
thank you.
If there are a lot of questions, we can keep it till 11:30.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that, because I've always been quite aware of your time scales, not mine. Thank you. So Ayo, Kemi, and then Helen, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Banks. My question is, writing user story in cross-functional team, could you present it as a team thing, like, writing user stories? Could it be like a team thing where you have a user story and then you put your team into a meeting to say, is this right, or do you have input? Thank you. That's my question.
A user story is a collaborative tool, so you must do that. There's a conversation that has to happen after every story. You cannot force a user story on developers. That's just it. You need to have a conversation. Because if you say, I want to go to the market, what does that look like? Who are you? Which market? How are you getting there? So there are contexts. Like I did talk about context. I did talk about scope. So if I want to log into a website, what does that look like? How much do we have, to be able to build our feature? So all those things are where conversations come in. How much bandwidth does the development team have to be able to deliver that feature? So you must, as a rule, there must be card where you've written the story. There must be conversations where people validate that story, and there must be confirmation where there's a value. The value to that story is confirmed. So those are the formats which I've explained in my presentation. You must always have a conversation. It is important. It is very important, or else you're going to deliver, something that's only known to you, and you're going to have conflict with development team or whoever is going to deliver that story. So you must always have that conversation. It's very important. Very, very important. I remember I showed you a picture of a man and a dog. When you say, if I tell you now a man and a dog, you are going to think different. If you see maybe a short man and a fat dog today, that's what's coming to your mind. But if somebody else saw something, if I tell 10 people in a room, a man and a dog, and tell them to draw something on a book, nobody's going to draw the same thing. So that's important. You need to have conversation, because they should ask you, what kind of a man, what kind of a dog, how old is a man, how old is a dog? So all those things happen during the conversation to clarify and align everybody to the value that story is going to deliver. So that's important. Next question, please. Thank you.
Yes, hello. Hi, Bank. Yes, my question is user story the same as user experience that be right for the acceptance criteria?
Say that again, sorry.
Is the user story the same as the user experience?
User experience?
Yes.
Yeah, it's around the user experience, because if I'm doing something, it's an experience you're creating. User story creates experiences and outcomes. For example, if I'm logging in, what's that experience like? It all fits into the stories. For example, if I'm delivering a user story and the UI person comes and says, oh, he's trying to deliver an interface, it's going to come off that user story. You need to design, who am I designing for? Okay, is a millennial. I cannot use big buttons. It has to be flashy buttons. So all those things feed into user stories. And that's where conversations happen. The UI person will ask his own questions. The UX person will ask. User researcher will ask his own questions. And that's all those things feed into user stories. In fact, a user story is like a spider. It fits into so many things. The technical team will take that user story and build a feature. The designer person will take that story and build a feature. And everything comes together and becomes a requirement. And you test it against the requirement to make sure that it's working. For example, if I'm building the tablet or I'm building the laptop, it depends on who I'm building it for. I can't build a laptop for everybody. Even I can try, but all those things come from my user story. Who's using the laptop? Is he a millennial? Is he a 90-year-old man? Is it a classroom? Is it going to be used in the classroom? How strong should it be? How how secure should it be? Cyber security tool will come in, they'll ask their requirements. So it's all around conversation. So all those things feed into the requirement, and they all come of user stories. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Banks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, what I think I'll do is that, to be fair to everyone, if I allow everyone to put their questions, to ask their questions verbally, then what we'll do is that anyone who's written down a question should just ask that question in the Ladder Back Down WhatsApp group to to evoke conversations so that we can have people physically speaking. Is Kemi available to speak now, please? Because you've had your hands raised for a long time. And if Kemi isn't able to speak, would Funke like to speak, please, if you could kindly unmute yourself?
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, hi. My question is around Gherkin notation. So I just need to know what Gherkin notation is all about and how you can document requirement user stories with this.
While it's out of scope for this conversation, a Gherkin syntax simply says given when then. Given, for example, I want to be able to log in so I can access my account, right? Given that I've logged into my account with my username and my password, then given that I want to log into my account, when I enter my username and my password, then I should be able to log in. It's something like a reverse of the story. Given that I've done an action, when I do what is required, then I should be able to get some value. So it's a template too. It's a template. So Gherkin syntax, given when then. That's just a format. Given that I want to do this, when I do the right thing, I should get. There's the opposite. There's the happy path, and then there's the unhappy path where things go wrong. Given that when you do stuff, for example, I want to log in with somebody's password and username, I shouldn't be able to get access. That's another Gherkin syntax or criteria. So all those things come together to validate user stories, right?
Thank you.
There's a question around behavior-driven development. Yeah, it's one of the ways of delivering stories too. It's around understanding user behaviors and using that to drive value. Somebody said acceptance criteria is a technique used to know what to test and how to. So a BA writes what fulfills definition of done. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to read what's been written on the floor so we don't leave anybody behind. Other questions? RPA is robotic process automation. Yeah, okay. User stories answer the who, what, and why. Yeah. My account user as a user. Okay. Do you specify what the user is as a system? That yes, you have to specify a user as a system. A system admin is a user. It might be a software or whatever, but if you understand what outcomes and what actions they take, then that's fine. Is it best practice to differentiate who the user is? Yes, there's something called persona building. It's best practice to understand. Like I said, if I say a man and a dog, you need to actually do a personal development to understand what men and what dogs are we talking about. And everybody should understand that it is a man with a black dog or a man with a yellow dog, whatever, as long as we build alignment. For traceability, can the Jira board the user story is written, create that source? Yeah, it can. Traceability just confirms that we've delivered the requirements. That's what traceability is all about. We've delivered the requirement and it's correct. And yeah, for example, if I was in a role where I had to sign off requirements before they get paid, I go and look at it. Did they deliver it? Tested? What problem? Okay, pay them. That's all. So it's used for so many things. In the case I'm familiar with, you need to define them. Yeah, the actors, you have to link the user needs to stories. Yes, you can do that. Is user story the same as user experience? No. User experience feeds into user stories, and experience could be, how they're feeling when they do this. What behaviors. So we talk about behavior-driven development. What kind of behaviors happen when people interact? Are they frustrated? Are they happy? Is this something? That's why we do things like net promoter score. When you use our system, are you happy with it? Does it, is this something you want to share with others? And then we get feedback on that. So yeah. Okay, any more questions? Thank you. That was a brilliant. Okay, thank you. Thank you. No more questions.
Fonke has a question. She's got her hands raised.
Go for it, please.
All right, thank you. I just want to ask a question around technical user stories in a technical environment. Is there any simple formula to writing user stories when you're in a technical environment and you're not that technical, as a BA? Like you rightly mentioned, as products in Azure or AWS. Is there any formula to writing such user stories? Thank you.
From my experience, I've never written technical stories because I don't need to, because I'm not a technical person. If there's a need to write technical stories, like I said, it can come from the technical people. My whole thing is understand what users want to do. For example, I said something about somebody firing up a machine, virtual machine. That's not a story. But if it's part of a user experience, for example, when I log in, if a machine needs to be fired up so that I can have an account, then that's fine. That might be technical, but I still need to keep it as simple as possible so that I understand what actions are taken, what value is delivered. So technical things should be written by technical people. BAs can write, they are technical business analysts. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one, so I can't tell you that I've written any technical stories in a while, but in my experience, it's all around the user. So whoever that user is, understand the user and what they do and what value is, and that's all a user story. So if you want to make it technical, just still understand that this is the value that comes from that technical journey that's been taken. So that's how I will answer it. I might not have answered it well, but that's from my experience, that's how I will answer that question. Thank you. Any more questions?
There are some more. Let me just try and find who's got their hands raised. Could you kindly, Judith, could you kindly unmute yourself, please? Thank you. Judith, have you got a question still, please, or has your question been answered? Okay, I think they may have had their question answered, although I may be wrong. Muyiwa has got his hands raised. Let me just try and ask him to unmute. And Judith has also unmuted herself. Judith, would you like to go first, please? And then Muyiwa, please. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. My question has been answered. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what about Muyiwa, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for organizing this meeting. You're saying about something about when you talked about the user story, you also said something about business, is it term and condition or something like that? So who write that?
Business rules.
So business rules, yes. Yeah. So who's responsible for that?
The BA. It's a business. BA. Business. The business analyst is responsible for that, even though it's owned by the product owner. And in most organizations, the product owner and the business analyst is one person. I've worked in a lot of organizations where they call me BA, but I was doing product. I was even doing product management. So it's all around. It's all written by the business analyst. Sometimes the product owner, business analyst. It's written by any one of them. So it depends on what you might be called a B and you are doing more than that. So you still need to write it. You need to get it from the business and write. For example, if I'm building the website, what are the rules around when somebody needs to get refunded? I mean, that's come from the business. I don't want to collect £100 from somebody and give them £100 back. I mean, we spent software to get that £100 from you, so you must pay something. So, but that comes from the business. They can say, oh, okay, we'll take 5% and refund the remaining 95. So all those will need to be documented so that the development team can inject it to the story where needed, because that's going to happen under the conversations about of the story. All right.
Thank you.
Myself. Apologies. Could Uche please unmute, and then Temi, please? Thank you.
Hi, thanks for organizing this session. So I'm just trying to find out what's the best way to write a user story. So do you go from persona, you build your persona, you do your user journey, and then you now get your features out of the user journey and then write your user stories?
Yeah, a lot of things feed into your user story. And like I said, user stories can come from a lot of people. They can come from things like process maps. For example, if you draw a process map of somebody who's using my website, you can get stories around there. You can look at features, you can look at epics. For example, login can be an epic, and then you can decide what happens under login. Payment can be a login, can be an epic, and you can decide what story comes up under. So all those things come. It can also come from use cases. Use case, for example, identify the user, how they interact with the system, what they do, identify that user, how they interact. So there are a lot of things that can trigger user stories. Also, you can do user interviews. You can ask the user researcher, go and speak to Timmy in Manchester, find out how Timmy interacts with our system. They can come back and say, oh, this is how Timmy does it. This is what Timmy is doing. This is Timmy's behavior. This is Timmy's lifestyle. So all those things will feed into how you write your story. For example, some people will prefer to do stuff on the phone than on your website because they are millennials. They're always on the phone. So all those things will feed into your stories. So a lot of things feed into your story. It can come from the business case. It can come from the requirements document. It can come from a lot of things. It can even come from user journey maps, empathy maps, how they interact. It can come from personal stories. Okay, this is a person, he's 32 years old, he's a millennial, he's always traveling, he loves to eat football, he loves to play football, he doesn't like so likes and dislikes and aspirations. So all those things can feed into your story. So I cannot say that there's one particular thing that that's a major source of stories. It depends on how far you want to go as a development team and how far you are empowered to speak with the customer. Because that's important. If you're not really empowered to speak in the customer, you're working on a guess, and you're going to test your hypothesis. Hypotheses are guesses. You're going to test it, and then if it works, use it. If it doesn't work, then you keep trying. So it's a function of so many things. Thank you.
Temi, could you unmute, please? Thank you. Temi.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, thank you. I think we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for organizing this session. I've learned a lot. My question, I don't know if it's out of scope, but it's basically about what the business analyst should be responsible for writing. Because I've seen quite a number of questions, and then you end up just saying the business analyst should write it. Because I know there are situations where sometimes the job of the PM, some other people, they just want to push it on the BA. And if you're not careful, you're doing things that are outside scope for you as a business analyst. So how do you handle situations like that? Should say, oh, this is not for me to write, this is for you to write. How do you know which is basically for business analysts and you're not shooting yourself in the leg?
Okay, the way I will answer that is sometimes you do things that are not really in scope of your skills because you want to keep your job or you want to stay. So I will answer it from a sensitive side. You can do anything as a BA. BAs are like Swiss knives. We can do so many things. For example, let me tell you, I build apps. I can build an app. It's no big deal to me, even though it's no code and all that. And it's because I interacted with somebody who builds apps. So you, as a BA, you don't want to limit yourself because on the long run, BAs evolve into product owners. They evolve into subject matter experts. They evolve into CTOs, CIOs. My director of IT, where I work now, used to be a BA. So don't. Of course, I'm not saying that they should now overload you with work. You need to understand, business need to understand what the BA should do and what the scope of BA's work is. And when there's an overload, they should hire another BA. But we know that's usually not the reality. So you need to come to a middle ground where if I don't do this, I hope these people won't say out of the door. So it's all a balance. You need to balance it. If you cannot do it, just tell them simply, I'm doing stuff right now. I can't do it. Get somebody else, or you can wait. So you need to be diplomatic. One of your skills is diplomacy. You promise people and you tell them is conditional on this being available. So pull out your diplomacy and tell them, sorry, I can't do it right now. I'm going to try, but I've got a more important project that's given to me by the director, blah, blah, blah. Give them somebody above their name. Tell them you are doing that. And if you finish it on time, you will come to them. So your diary is full at the moment. You cannot do it. And that's it. So diplomacy, just tell them, I can't do it for now. I will try, but it's not something I can do for now. Or it's not within my skill set, but it's going to take you some time to learn to do what you want. So if you are ready to do that, fine, we can wait. And then you go and learn it and do it. So yeah, it's all around, just being able to manage stakeholders. And yeah, let them know that you're busy and you can't, cut yourself into 10 different parts. Thank you.
Abby G has raised their hand. Could you kindly unmute yourself? Thank you. Since Mr. Banks has kindly said that he'll stay till 11:30, which is really gracious of you. Thanks so much. Abby G, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for that wonderful presentation. Just want to contribute a little about the technical depth story. From testing experience, because I'm from a testing background, and I'm aware that technical stories are written by the development team, and basically on how the system should function properly. So it's the developers that does the technical depth stories, and they are the one that tests it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very good. Thank you very much. I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to, raise a fluff. Thank you very much. Let's see if there are any more questions there. Yeah, I did drop a Google Drive link, so if you want to download it, it's on Google Drive. It's been shared. Any more questions? Or let's see, Bukun have the rest of our day back.
No, it's rather about you having the rest of your day back. I'm used to this, so I'm available
I'm enjoying
for as
this,
long
so it's
as
fine.
you have.
I'm enjoying it, so it's fine.
We'll take Babatiwa's question, but I just wanted to briefly say that we've got a lot of people requesting to join subgroup 6 in the ladder back down community, and I have emphasized that we join group 3. Subgroup 6 was just created last night for when group 3 becomes full. So if you've requested to join group 3 or 6 rather, or if you've been able to join group 6, please exit from that group and join group 3, where there are already existing BAs, but it's about to become full, which is why I created group 6 yesterday. So group 3, please. Thank you. Could Babatiwa kindly speak, and ask your question? Thank you so much for your patience. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm not asking a question. I just want to appreciate you, Ibukun, and Banks particularly. Thanks so much. Yeah, Banks, thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much. For someone, like been over almost a year now out of this particular feed. Yeah, it's refreshing. It actually make a lot of sense. Thanks once again, Banks. And Ibukun, man, God bless you, man. More power to your muzu.
Thank you so much. But today's about Banks, who has sacrificed his time to be
Banks,
here.
He
just volunteered to do this out of the kindness of his heart. He wasn't asked to do it or anything.
There's no Banks without Ibukun.
No. Yes, there is. Absolutely. I don't know anything about user stories, anything about being a BA. I couldn't even tell that epics are the same thing as user stories. So no, it's definitely been your day today, and we really appreciate your presentation. It's enlightened me, but I'm still not interested in becoming a BA. But thank you so much. Let me ask Oluwaseun to unmute, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Banks. Thank you, Ibukun. Okay, so my question is, to write a good user story, do you have to consider, definitely you have to consider your epics, but do you have to consider your epics, feature maps, and use case diagram? Like, I know they all work together, but which one of them do you really need to focus on to get your good user stories?
All of them. I did talk about the UX person designing stuff from user stories. For example, if I'm building an app for a millennial and I'm building an app for a 60-year-old, it's going to be different. You understand? So that's where these conversations come. Those conversations come from all those stories, all those documents, deliverables, use cases, whatever. They look at them and they ask questions because we humans are visual. If I say 10 million now, you're not saying, let me put it, if I say 10 million, you don't know whether it's 10 million. If I say 10 million pounds now, you're saying money. But if I say 10 million, you don't know 10 million what? What does that mean? 10 million dogs, 10 million. So we're visual. We need to see and to design. If I don't see, if you say green, if you want a green website, we'll make you a green website. If you want a blue website. So we must always get the context right. And that's context from all those deliverables, all those tools that if you business case, use case, user journey map, user experience design, sonars, all those things feed into your user story and they feed into what the team delivers at the end of the day, and it's going to be tested and validated and everybody agrees, yeah, this is what we want. So it's like playing in advance what we're going to do. User stories enables us to do that, to play in advance what we're going to deliver, and then we can decide, okay, everybody's seeing the same picture, yeah, we're ready for it. Somebody did say something about the difference between definition of done and I sometimes struggle with this. I do apologize if I get it wrong, but if there's a tester here who can answer it better, because a lot of times I mess up with things like definition of ready, definition of done. But somebody gives you an example of where we want to make food, we have all the ingredients ready, all the ingredient is complete. We are ready, yeah. We are ready to do it. Now, when we've cooked all those things within the prescription that's been set for us, and somebody eats it and somebody cooks it, it's done, And then when it's tested and validated, it is it is confirmed done. So there's a tester here. Please confirm what I've just said, because different people have different ideas of definition of done and definition of ready. Please, I don't want to just talk in here, but that's the concept I will always use. You're cooking food, you have all the ingredients complete. Because a user story helps you too much echo. A user story helps you get all the ingredients for a feature. When you have them complete, we are ready, and when it's cooked, done, tested, it is done. You can now take it to the person and your food is ready, eat it, and the user eats it and they're happy. We've made a complete success of that feature. So yeah, so that's the idea of definition of ready and definition of done. It's just a collaborative way of seeing things, agreeing, drawing boundaries as to what needs to be in place before we can start coding a story or coding a feature. And then when it is done, what it needs to be tested against to decide that the value is right and it is it is doing the right thing. Next question, please. I think some hands are raised up.
Oh, Emma Hope, could you kindly speak, please? And then Olufunke, please. Can you kindly unmute yourselves, please?
Okay, hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. And thank you, Victoria, as well. Thank you, Mark. Because I just want to ask, the Google Drive you mentioned, can you please tell us or tell me where you dropped it? Because I've been trying to search with my eyes on the leather background WhatsApp page, and I've not been able to get it. I also checked the mail that was sent to me. I didn't get it.
She's not very clear.
Yeah, I can't really hear you. Could you kindly
we didn't hear what you said. There's a lot of muffling here. It's not very clear. Maybe
Can you
yes.
hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, a bit better.
Slightly better. Yeah.
So I'm just asking,
better.
where the Google Drive link is. Is it on Leatherback Down, or was it dropped on the chats? Because I know there was a time I left the call and then I had to rejoin. So if it was on the chat, I might not be able to see it.
Okay, could someone?
I'm sharing it now.
Thank you.
I've added
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. I've just
All
put
right.
it up now. So if you look, it should be
Okay,
there.
yes, it's there
Yeah.
now. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, could you mute yourself once you finish there? And then if Bless A could talk, please. Whoever A is, A for Alpha, and then Blessing, please. Thank you. Oh, A, I've asked A to unmute. Unless you don't have a question. Okay, and if you don't have a question, then let's now go to Imahope. Have you spoken, or did you just go back on mute? And Uwem. Uwem, kindly unmute yourself if you've got a question. Uwem.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Hey, thanks for this session. Not really a question, just a little comment. I was thinking about what you just said about the context being very important. Like sometimes as a business analyst, when you are doing a work, it's always good to theme the work. For example, if you're working on an environment website, it would be nice to get like a green theme to it, because green stands for, the environment. So it's nice to always try to connect some bit of theme to your work as well, so that visually speaking, if somebody goes to the website, they see it, it connects with what the story is. The second point I was going to contribute on is regarding the Epic. Epic is a big user story, but still that could be a little misleading to newer BAs, because Epic is a very big story, like a big topic that is broken down to smaller chunks, which are now the user story. So sometimes, so that it doesn't get confusing to people, I always try to keep it segregated as the big topic and the user stories. And the last point I was going to make is that regards traceability, you mentioned about traceability. If you are using the Jira board, for example, for tracking, that could act as a single source of truth to sort of kind of trace all the requirements or whatever has been made in a story, because it is there. Comments made, tasks created, subtasks created. So in an agile world, that can act as a traceability document as well. That's just what I wanted to say. And thanks a lot for today's session. Cheers.
Thank you.
Ifuaye. Ifuaye, you have. Hello, good day.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just quickly, Mr. Banks, I don't think you touched on this, but it's something I struggle with on a day-to-day. It is prioritization using probably Moscow. And the reason I struggle with it is because it's something that comes up as an afterthought. So I don't talk about it during, let's say, a workshop with the users. So what is the best way would you suggest I go about this? Because I know it's important, but I think I don't know when to actually have that conversation with the stakeholders as to when we should, what is most important to them and what is an option.
You know, Moscow is just one of those tools. You want one easy one very easy one. Just get 100 fake $100 bills and tell them each dollar represents a feature. What's most important to you? What will you spend $80 on or $50 on? Just make it simple. Moscow could be it could be, I don't know, it could be too technical for people. They don't know, must have, could have, won't have, could have. I mean, what's all that? Make it as simple as I hardly use Moscow. Just bring money and say, okay, this is £100 or $100 or fake notes. Bring them and say, what would you spend $80 on? We have two of these epics or whatever that I want to. What's most important to you? And that will resonate with them. Because every business is about money. Even if you're a charity, you still want to save money. So it's about money. So look for other methods. If Moscow is not working, Moscow is 1 out of hundreds. Dump it. Use something else. Moscow might even be for your own prioritization. For now, this is what you think should be priorities, and then you set it. But you can be in the mind of a stakeholder. I mean, they are busy. They are jumping from meeting to meeting, and then you're now asking them to come and prioritize based on Moscow. It's sincerely, it's difficult. it's difficult because from my project management experience, it's very difficult. Keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Don't even talk about must have, could have, won't have. Just bring money and say, okay, this is £100. What would you spend 50 on? What would you spend 20 on? What won't you spend money on? You know, those ones you have to dump them for now because they are not priority. They are not willing to spend money on that. And then you can go from there. Just make it look. I've got a handbook called I'll probably screenshot it. The Business Analyst Handbook. It's a big black book. It's very good. There are a lot of tools there around how to set priorities, how to make it as simple as possible for your stakeholders, because stakeholders they don't like sitting down in meetings. Forget it. They sit down in meetings all day, but they don't like it because they have to do it because that's their bread and butter. Now you bring in your own. Let's do so we can prioritize quickly with £100. Set it quickly, and you validate it with an email. George has agreed. We go with this, and George will say, yes, I did. I can remember the money. So just keep it simple. Thank you.
Okay, we still have Olufonke and Emma Hope's hands up. Are those legacy hands, or are those or have you got further questions so that Mr. Banks can leave?
Thank you. This is
I'm sorry, but I lowered my hand already. So
Okay, so anyone else got any questions? Otherwise, we can call it a day, and then we'll send the recording out once we've finished with it. I'll send it to Mr. Banks first, and then we'll upload it onto the Ladder Back Down's website. And if you registered for the workshop, then you will receive a link to the recording. We'll also post it in the Ladder Back Down's groups as well, the different focus groups. And you'll try and hopefully we'll get it through one avenue or the other, basically.
Ibukun, you have my approval. Please just go ahead and post it. There's no need for me to validate anything. I don't think I've said anything
right.
that's politically incorrect.
That's absolutely
so
fine.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you.
Yeah,
That's absolutely
you're
fine.
welcome.
And
You're
yes, I just thought that you may want to add your magic to it with regards to video editing or anything like that. But if you don't want to,
I think Google or YouTube will normally generate text and all that. I think that's the only thing, except you want me to add something for Ladder Back Down on it and all that. That's fine. I can add the logo to the picture, to the image. That's fine. Yeah.
No, not at all. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
fine.
And thanks
That's
so
fine.
much for expending your time with us today, because
welcome.
I know you did say that you had an hour to spare. And so and that's what we advertise. So thank you so much for staying on, for going the extra mile. Thank you for volunteering as well to
Thank you.
To come and address us today. We really appreciate you. And I know that some people have asked how to contact you. Well, Mr. Banks is very active within the Ladder Back Down community. He's also a program board executive on our web development program that we're doing, projects rather, that we're doing so far. We haven't got any opportunities for volunteers on that any longer, but Mr. Banks is a board exco, very well respected. And so please make contact with him privately within the group if you want to avail yourself of his mentoring services. And we'd just like to say thank you to everyone as well for attending. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.